Thursday, November 9th, we open the meeting.
Yep. Motion to open the meeting?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the first thing we have tonight is the minutes from October 12th. Let's take a second to review that. Motion for the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Second, somebody got a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
All in favor? Get that, no meeting mail, no
Give you a
appointments.
chance to speak.
I wasn't at the meeting, that's why.
Oh.
Okay.
So the first we got the FY '24 revenue to date. Yeah.
Yes, on your handouts, if you take a look at October forecast was roughly 202, and that also matches what we did last year, or it was approximately 202. We did 213 this October, and it should be mentioned and recognized that we had a lot of inclement weather this October. We didn't do our season pass holder promotion, which usually generates $24,000 to $30,000 worth of revenue that, you know, feeds your bottom line. And we exceeded our number without that promotion. So you exceeded your number without that pass holder promotion. So you had additional revenues of rounds coming through. But then on top of that, you also used current pass holders' passes because they didn't get their promotional punch card. So you started using up next year's passes this year, and we still saw a decent amount of pass holder purchases because with the anticipation of price increases and inflation, you still got some of the added revenue from that. And I mean, this time of the year, generally people are winding down on their inventory of passes. So they've either exhausted their current pass inventory, or they got low enough to think, you know what, I'm gonna buy in and get some additional passes, finish the season, and then have some passes to start next season. So everything worked out, even with the bad weather days, and I mean, we had some good weekday weather days, but it seemed to be, in that weekend trend was just, it's been steady all season. We've had some bad weekend days with weather, but fortunately, we haven't seen that many total washouts. We've seen still a lot of, a decent volume of play. So it was good.
And the year-to-date is what, so it's plus
Oh,
81,
yeah, that would
800,
put
is
us,
that
yeah,
what
sorry about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what the 81,816 is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
That's to date.
Yes, we've exceeded the plan by 81,000 so far this year.
And then just to give a quick glimpse of November, our November number forecasted is, we keep that relatively conservative at, roughly 46,000, and we're at 30. We're at 40 right now. So we'll have that through the weekend. We'll beat that number, and we'll be moving into having some additional profitability add to that bottom line. So this is a good time of year if we have some decent days to really get after and get some bodies out there and push them through and get in that last punch of profit before we shut it down. So it's been fairly decent. The demand is still relatively strong. I mean, for the weather forecast is as such going into the weekend, even though it's cool and it says sunshine, we've got a decent amount of bodies. Friday, Saturday are almost sold out. Sunday is much colder forecast, so it's probably half full. But again, this time of year it's the NFL Sunday, so you're competing against colder temperatures plus NFL football's on. It's not so much the Patriots, but the NFL.
Yeah.
They're in Germany.
Yeah.
Hey, watch
Oh,
the
my
Giants
God.
either.
I'm not gonna be there at 8:30 to see him watch.
The Loser Bowl will be November 27th when the Patriots
Yeah.
play the Giants
Yeah.
to see who's the biggest loser. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, the Cardinals might lay claim to
Yeah,
that too.
I
so-
don't know. No, who else is, Carolina, yeah, they've only won one game.
Okay, so that's the revenue, any questions on that for Dana?
No.
Next, the Baroness payment options. You know, that looks like it's being suggested by the town accountant that we just pay cash for. I saw that in one email from Nick. We just use the older article and pay for it. Is that the suggestion?
That was what came from him.
Correct.
Yeah, I didn't,
Who suggested
wasn't
that?
privy to that particular email.
Oh, Nick
but
did?
Nick did. I mean, I'm not going to argue with it. I think it's a better idea. I just have a disdain for paying finance charges, but especially this day and age where the finance rate
Keeps going up.
is blown way out of proportion.
So that was a discussion I had with Nick.
Okay.
And Nick said, why don't we just pay it? And I said, fine. So I put that in a note to the Board of Selectmen that we voted to do fair market value, but that suggestion is to pay cash. And whenever they meet, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, first, I'm fine with that as well. Should we maybe just a quick revote just for the record that we endorse just paying cash for the Baroness FS 900?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, it's just-
Again, I don't know when it's gonna be on the agenda.
It's not. For
On
the
the
14th.
14th, it's not?
No. I went, actually, when I went in the selectman's office last week, when I heard that it was going to be on the 14th, and requested that we be put on it, and I just got a copy of the agenda for the 14th today, and it's not there. Again, since it's using article funds, I was, and article funds did specify equipment in the article when it was passed this time last year. I'm just a little bit amiss as to, can the selectmen overrule town meeting?
Might be
I don't
just
know.
a timing thing.
Well, it's a timing thing, but it's sometimes they have such a busy schedule, sometimes putting that on there, they just, it doesn't seem to have significant weight since it was approved at town meeting and this committee approved it when that's gonna be on an agenda, and I can't sit here and continue to make the vendor, well, they didn't put it on the agenda, here, wait another couple weeks, oh, wait, here comes Thanksgiving, oh, here comes the holiday, oh, wait another 4 more weeks, because it'll be on.
It's not there for next week, maybe we can hopefully at least and just make sure it gets on whatever that following meeting is after that. I'm not quite sure what date that
I would
is.
assume it would be the 21st, but then that's the week, who knows?
Right,
I don't know if
Thanksgiving that week, so-
I don't know if the meeting schedule slows down this time of year, picks up, I don't know.
What is this about? I'm totally lost about that.
Well, that machine that we had voted on at the last meeting, we had voted to lease it. And then Nick, the town accountant, suggested that since we had money in the older article, that's a year and a few months old, and part of that article was for equipment, why didn't we just spend it and buy this machine instead of leasing it and paying the finance charges? So right now it's just getting the selectmen's
But you have to have
approval.
selectmen's approval,
I
right?
think whether we lease it or buy it, either way, because the lease, they need to approve the lease. To buy it out of the article, they need to approve using the article, so either way, we needed the.
So they actually do need to approve using the article even though it passed the town meeting.
Right, so town meeting makes the
It
funds
says in the
available.
article, per approval
Yeah.
of golf committee and Board of Selectmen.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I didn't remember the wording of the article, so.
Yeah, town meeting lets the funds be available, but the final approval still.
Well, they
goes
canceled the
through.
last meeting, so that's.
Yeah, it was on that agenda, yeah, but they had some issues and couldn't have that meeting, so. We will wait and see to what agenda we get on.
Yeah, hopefully whatever the next one is. All right, so tree removal on 4, 11, and 11, I should say.
Yeah, I've got, marked some trees on the 4th hole and the 11th hole. The primary reason for removal is to get some sunlight exposure into those tees so we can get better growth and better turf coverage on those tees. And, reviewing it through the year and taking pictures at different times of the year, depending on, the sun angle. The fourth tee, the back three tees get maybe 2.5 hours, at max 3 hours of sunlight a day because of the position of the trees we're going to remove and the position of the trees on the right-hand side. There's only a small opening. This year it was a little bit more evident because it was so wet. The tees basically never dried out. Got significantly diseased and thinned out in a couple places. And plus, unfortunately, with the number of trees on the right, nobody likes to use the right side of the tee because they don't want to go into the woods and over into the cranberry bogs. Same issue with 11, it's just a different sun angle. So I marked some of the trees for removal. I had the folks from Beaver Tree come out and give us an estimate, and for the removal of the trees on the 11th, or excuse me, on the fourth hole was 4,400, and on the 11th hole was 6,000.
So it's a total of 10.
10-4 is the total. And they will take everything that, they will chip everything that fits into their chipper. What remains, we'll have.
Go back and see those trees.
We'll have.
So you're in agreement to knock them out?
Are we gonna remove the stumps with that, or grind it?
Well, I did. I was hoping to have the stumps pulled out. I'll have them cut the stumps as low as possible. But then, if we have our machine can't pull them out.
Right.
I was hoping to either get some assistance from either DPW or that. I mean, I could rent a machine, but that would be probably more expensive than having them ground, depending on how long it would take to dig them out. The stumps on the actually, there's a couple trees on the fourth hole where the stumps I think would be an issue. The other stumps are off the cart path and into the woods. It's same thing for 11. But we, like I said, I didn't look at getting that cost initially because I don't think they stump grind. I can look for other people to stump grind, or I'll ask him when I talk to him next about whether he can bring a stump grinder and what that would cost. They usually cost it out by the width or the diameter of the stump that they're grinding.
Yeah.
So we're better off pulling the stumps off, right?
Behind the third, the stumps behind the third green, I'd like to pull out because I'd like to clean that area up a little bit, because we do get a lot of people that fly that green sometimes, and to be back there all the time in the pucker brush trying to find a ball. If we can pull those stumps out and move them to the back a little bit, I've got some material I can put in there, kind of fill it in just so it's a little bit easier. We take that brush mower through there 2 or 3 times during the course of the year, and it'll be a little bit easier for people to find the ball and keep things moving a little bit.
Steve, how many trees are we talking about, did you say?
On the fourth hole, there's 9, and on the 11th hole, there's 13.
Wow, okay.
That's a pretty good price for
I
that
would
number
think
of
so.
trees. But
Yeah, it is.
again, I mean, they're going to chip everything they can. The pine bolts, we'll cut up and stack.
So what's our goal here? That we're gonna make the front 9 as what do you call it? An Oprah ground, an Oprah links type golf course?
No, the majority.
This number of trees.
You will notice it when you come to play the tee, but 99.9% of the 23 trees that are coming out are not in play. They're not specimen trees. One of them is a rather large oak that has about a 47-degree bend towards the third green. If it comes down, you're going to be paying more than $10,400 to fix the damage. Huge tree is I mean, I couldn't put my arms around, I had to use a stick to put the tape around it, and it's leaning this way. But they're not, you know, it's not an in-play tree. It's not a tree that's protecting a tee. The 11th hole, I don't know, maybe if somebody really yanked it, shot to the left. It's off to the left-hand side. As a matter of fact, if you remember a few years ago when Mr. Mungeon was out there taking his walk and looking and reviewing the course, he and I were walking down there, and he just stopped me and he said, "Why are those there?" And I said, because I haven't been able to take them out yet. And you walk up on the 11th tee and you look, and that's why it's wet dirt most of the time, because there's just no sun. But like I said, no, it's not going to, you know, we're not clear cutting the front side. Till we take a few trees out here and there, and most people will appreciate from the standpoint they have a better playing surface on the tee, and we have a little bit better air circulation around the tees. But I mean, if it were a tee that, if it was a pivotal tree, I'd be more concerned about it. You know, if a tree that makes a corner, makes it harder to cut the corner, to, you know, when you're playing and whatnot. But these are basically, I mean, if you fly the green, yeah, you might have been behind one, but then, you know, that's even a double penalty.
Do we need a motion to approve these trees, spending the money to bring the trees down? Or just-
Did we get more than one estimate on that, or just one estimate?
I just got the one. That's the company I've used for several years to do tree work. I've called a couple other companies. I called Barnes 2 or 3 times on a previous project. They never called me back. I even went on their website and I filled out a form. Never heard back from one of the other tree companies that I used to use. I don't believe doesn't work anymore, because I haven't been able to get in touch with them through the old phone number.
Do we need a quote for over 10,000?
Yep.
Yeah, that we should be at least soliciting, since it is over 10 in total. Just so that we've solicited 3. I mean, you can count Barnes as one solicitation because you tried.
Well,
They didn't
technically
back you.
speaking, they're 2 different
Well,
projects.
but it's still
Maybe-
trees at the same time, and it's trees. So it's,
Well, I can do one month and one the next. I mean, it's
right, and then that's what.
it's $400. And technically, like I said, they're 2 different projects. I mean, it's not
But
like,
it's really not, though. I mean, in the procurement world, in the Commonwealth, it's not 2 separate projects. You're doing the exact same thing, and you know it needs to be done, and you want to do it.
So you gotta get at least 3 quotes then.
either
well, I'll tell you what,
that
I'm gonna go back to
or
them and
lowers
I'm
the
gonna
price
take
to
down 2
$99.
of them myself and see if I can get $400 knocked off.
There you go.
To get 3 more, to get 2 more quotes and try to get somebody in there and over here and familiar with the property, somebody who's
You
done golf
only need
course
to get
work.
3
and-
quotes, right?
Well, how about if he does that? If he does knock
doesn't
down the
respond.
quantity and gets it
Right,
below the
right,
10,000,
Right, you need to
do
solicit
that.
it, so a
let's do
non-response
that.
counts.
Just sacrifice a
You're right.
couple.
Right.
So he's got,
So he really has 2, because he's got the one that we have, you have Barnes, who clearly didn't get back to you.
Well, that was on a different project. That was
Oh,
at the
okay.
beginning of the year when we were considering the tree work down on the 8th hole.
Do we have anybody local here in town that does that?
Well, they're local.
A few people in the question did do it.
I think Barnes is local.
Well, there's
Yeah,
one
one
guy
guy
who's
is
local.
as long as he's make an effort to get 3 quotes,
Right.
and this is the only one he has is that's valid.
They should remember that.
It- How about if we reduce the project to be less than 10,000? Could you guys vote on that and motion it? And then he just has the project come in, if you motion and say, if the project doesn't exceed 10,000, take down those however many trees you can get negotiated to.
Right, we could also say up to $9,999,
There you go.
even if you do 1 less tree, because on average, he's charging you $500 a tree. I mean, that works as well, too.
Yeah.
You know?
Do that.
Or just ask Gary to go down to 9999. I'm sure it won't kill him.
Take the last tree down while he's there.
Oh, don't worry. I mean, you know, the only reason I put a couple of the extra trees on there is because I'm getting a little bit older and I'm not as good with the chainsaw as I used to be. but there ain't nobody else better than me who works for us, so. The reason I say that is because I'm gonna have to clear a few other ones out before I drop one of the big ones, just so it doesn't land where I don't want it to. But I've been pretty successful in 22 years. I haven't dropped anywhere I
close.
shouldn't.
Got all your fingers and everything.
Oh, yeah, got my fingers.
So to keep this moving along, why don't we do it that way, then just approve up to $9,999 and tree removal work?
I'll make a motion to that.
One second, that.
Yeah, I'll second it. 9999.
Bingo.
Water Street.
South Water Street, yeah.
All in favor?
I like trees, Mr. Chairman.
Huh?
I know,
I like
trees are
trees.
expensive. I just had.
Yeah, I love
I
trees.
just had a
but-
tree trimmed in the back of
Yeah,
my house.
love
in
green
Bedford.
grass too, right?
$1,900 just to trim the tree away from the house. Not to cut it down, just to trim it.
It's not cheap.
I almost
But
flipped
we
like
do,
I
we
gave it a
do
bill.
understand we need to cut some trees to allow the grass to grow,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is.
Well, I mean, just look at your,
There's
you know-
a whole bunch more on.
Well,
Not only that, but just look at your car path. I mean, look what the trees are doing to your car paths.
That's got, well, that's why you cut.
Okay.
After,
Cut the
after
ones that are
25,
mostly-
after 25 years, trees grow.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Cut the ones that
So
are
something
not
has to be
important
done.
now and then next
Right,
year,
Right?
start out like
next year take
this.
another
yeah.
whack at it.
And also you cut trees, so you should plant others, no?
Well, yeah.
Is areas that we could plant others and.
Yeah, we
should
could,
look
we
at-
could plant
Stop
others.
planting
Plant-
cop paths.
Plant more
You
appropriate sized
gotta
trees.
replace some of them, I mean, you can't just keep cutting and not replacing any.
Most of them are what, pine trees, right?
Well, pines are the surface trees. Most of the ones in this particular instance are pine trees.
No good for nothing.
You know, and then you get, you know, and a lot of the tree work around the corner, I mean, is a lot of it's smaller stuff. But like you said, 25 years ago, it was X-high.
Yeah.
Now it's, and now it's bigger. And they have, there are, specific tree lists the architects use all the time on golf courses, whether it's, leaf producing, whether it's fruit producing, because, you don't want stains on cart paths, or you don't want people to have to root through walnuts or something else to find the ball, whether it's surface rooting or not surface rooting, and then it's ornamental qualities, a good backdrop tree, what's its shape, what have you. But it's, I mean, to be quite honest with you, my tree projects are relatively easy compared to some of the ones, I mean, when I worked down in Connecticut, they went through Wingfoot and took down 200 and some odd trees. Like 200.
I
Not
think it's
13.
in superintendent's MO, because I know a few others that love to cut trees. You guys like get together and go out for dinner or something? It's like, hey,
No, well, you know what? The golfers come up to us and say, the old saying is you can't play golf in a tree, but you
True.
can on,
And
but you
if
can
you
on
play-
grass.
You can, yeah.
I play most of the time out of the trees.
Although your particular tree that'll knock your ball back into
Into
the
the
first
fairway.
fairway, we'll leave that one there.
Okay.
I'll speak on Steve's behalf though.
You
He's done a
marked
good
that one,
job.
so I remember where it is.
When he's thinned out some areas, he's left like an ornamental birch or a holly to
Yeah.
keep the aesthetics. So I mean, so it
The
depends
other
on what's
thing
there.
that most courses will have and we should consider it at some point, have a tree budget, because there is pruning that needs to be done. Dead limb the tree, prune out limbs that could fall, and keep the tree as healthy as possible. But I will talk to Gary about that.
All right, next we have bill payment process. Just about making sure we get things paid within 30 days if possible, is that?
I think we should move, at least I move that we go and save this and go in executive session in order to discuss this matter.
All right, we can, so we'll just table it for now then?
Yes.
Okay. No,
I make that motion, we gotta see if it passes.
We can just skip it, I'll make that decision. All right, National Golf Foundation
Somebody
update.
table, somebody second that.
Nobody seconded it.
I just made the decision to skip it.
Okay.
All right, so the NGF update. So the update, from me at least, I don't know if people have read through it or not. I myself just, literally yesterday, had a chance to write out some of the questions that I had about it, that I would like kind of clarified, or things that are, you know, not big, but a couple of little things I don't think are quite exactly correct here and there. We get those to Richard Singer. I don't know if anybody else has questions that we want to get to him before he tries to revise it, and then give him a chance to do that before asking him to do a more formal presentation back to us. I'm not sure, did anybody, I know Ed, you had a few questions. Did you email him directly with those, or no? Did you want me to put it all together in one?
You can, I have an email to say. Yeah, the biggest thing is, it suggests that the golf course is not an enterprise account.
Right, that's,
Part of the general fund.
right, so that's incorrect. That's, yeah, pretty far in there, but correct, it
Right,
says that.
and suggesting that the town will support any shortcomings we may have. Just doesn't,
Right, that's not how we're
that-
operating here.
And if the objective of the town is to allow the golf course to continue and to make money or generate positive cash flow. And I don't think the National Golf Foundation has addressed that issue. And I also have concerns about their estimated rounds in the 45,000 or 46,000 rounds,
It's high again.
which doesn't make any sense to me. I know some of the courses in the Cape have 40s, but they're open all winter.
Sure. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess part of that would come into play with who stays in as our competition in the local area. We have seen some things occurring in the local market, and if somebody does die on the vine, that may obviously open up an opportunity and see an
Right.
increase of rounds to
But
be
they're
played.
kind of predicting that we're
Right.
going to do 46,000 with annual price increases.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Well, I think he.
I don't think you
when
can
we-
handle that.
When we discussed it, he did say that in checking the competition, that he saw us as the market leader. So I'm not, he'll have to
Right.
answer it, but I'm just saying, I think maybe his perception was that we're gonna continue to be the market leader and siphon off maybe additional rounds.
Well, I think they need to consider the resource, the size of the property, and you can't just put out a number, oh, you're gonna do 45,000 rounds.
Right.
Because I don't think, to be quite honest with you, if you have 45,000 cart rounds, and you don't make a significant change in your budgetary inputs, this golf course will not support that. And you're going to end up with worn out areas, you're going to end up with issues in other areas. You need to have a predictable future that you can support in the short term, but also that you can support in the long term with augmented changes. Just to say, well, you're gonna do 45 to 46, I mean, what's the most we've done, 42?
Yeah. And that was packed.
So, I mean,
It was the highest.
I think you're comfortable right now between 35 and 42. And if the closer you get to 42, the better it is revenue-wise. And then, when you decide what your actual future is going to be 4 or 5 years down the road, then you can direct that future to accommodate those additional rounds, or the type of rounds you envision getting.
I can see making an assumption that if we, make some modifications or renovations to the course, could potentially attract more customers, but you're right, Ed, I think that's too high of a figure to think that year after year, we could even sustain that many customers coming through.
I agree. Shit.
But if that's the case, they need to redo it.
Oh, exactly right, so if he's gotta cut that down, then accordingly, the revenue projections he's put along with it needs to be cut down
Right.
accordingly, exactly.
So now the feasibility of the golf course continue with a positive cash flow needs to be reconsidered in their draft report. Because I'm concerned about understanding where we're gonna get enough money to fund a clubhouse. And fund a clubhouse that they're predicting will be on site in 2025, FY '26.
Right, that, I think it's timing, that was a note I made yesterday myself, that I think
It's
it's
an
timing
aggressive.
probably about a whole year
Well,
too aggressive.
I know, but so now you're gonna say, all right, where are you gonna get whatever, 2 million, they're saying 3 million,
Right.
or
And again, that number might be a little bit high as well.
how are we gonna do that?
Well, the other
You need town meeting approval to do that. And you need some kind of documentation that suggests we have a chance of doing that.
Well, exactly.
At 45,000, I don't think we have a chance of doing that.
you have a chance of doing it, maybe, you don't have a chance of doing it consistently, I don't think.
I mean, the point
And
is,
when they say, when somebody, people throw out the word clubhouse like, they do car. If you just say car, what exactly are you talking about? Well, clubhouse, you don't have to have the Taj Mahal the first time you start. You can have a relatively functional building that you have the opportunity to build onto in the future if you see the need.
Right.
It's not going to cost you the big bucks that they say it's going to cost.
True, too.
And especially if you use, the resources that are available to you. In your current employee pool, as well as others who have expressed to me the desire to be more than happy to volunteer their services as their professional discipline, whether it be electrician, plumber, roofer, or something else.
right, so somehow we gotta get the report in a draft that
Right.
gets in a position that we can start these things.
Mhm.
But right now, I'm not sure it's very realistic.
And his other assumption, was, if you do this, the existing debt's paid off, that we would take on new debt that's even more than we've been paying. I personally don't mind seeing new debt, but I'd like to see it around what we've been paying all along. If we had to go out and finance something, and we've been paying $340, let's just call it $350 a year, then I'd feel more comfortable seeing what we get for keeping $350 per year as the payment.
Yeah, or
that we've
less.
shown that we can
Or
do
less,
that.
so it gives you more
Well, right,
flexibility to
not,
spend
but
it.
this first draft is predicting that we could spend more because we would make more, but I'm not so sure I agree. Not that I don't agree that we can make more, but I don't want to agree that we should commit to that at this point, given we've been successful at this level of debt and being able to weather the ups and downs, and don't want us to be
Well,
burdened
the
with too
way
much.
the way I read that over there is the fact that they thinking of going in with the function facility and building quite a building. I mean, I don't think the town of Christians wants to go in that kind of business. I mean, I think you want to go into that, you have a little room that accommodates a little bar, a little snack bar that accommodates probably 45 people to 50 people, that you can have your little things, all the small little groups
Right.
can play and go there. But if you want to go into a function facility, I can sit down and talk to you for a day and a half or 2 days and tell you it's not going to be managed with one person meeting every once a month. I mean, you're going to have all kinds of staff on. I have on my own somewhere like around 75 employees. And now if you put this in payroll, I can agree with Eddie entirely that we're not going to make it. But if you want to go and build something that accommodates your cars underneath, that you can go electric and save on there. Upstairs you have a little display. I mean, and there's many around that you can check and see that they work very well. An office here, the bathrooms there, presentable bathrooms that people can use, not ones that the door's gotta be open in order to have some circulation. And do something nice in with a little building, a building somewheres between 100 feet long by 50 or 60 feet wide, that you can put your cars underneath and build upstairs. And then you can divide it and come out with a pretty good clubhouse.
Yeah,
I mean, you're not expecting to have room for storage bags because we don't have
Just a functional,
membership.
functional building.
That is gonna do
Bare
that,
essence.
it'll have a little grill, it says it'll be outside, it'll be inside, nice little kitchen that you can work with and have your facilities there. And, a room that's 50 people is a good sized room, it's something like my crystal room. And, or a little less footage than that.
We'll go back to like Southern Marsh. I don't know how many they hold, but they don't hold a lot.
Oh, they take back 9, he's got one that
Yeah,
doesn't
back
open.
9, the same
There's
thing.
someone that does
Yeah.
pretty well.
Yeah, he does rap very well,
Yeah.
food-wise too.
And then you can
You
develop a
hold
nice
the whole-
You
little
like that?
menu that you
The
can
whole outing,
work
he,
in.
they do the whole outing at the back nine.
They still
But
do.
At the town meeting, we had one gentleman get up and said the course was great, but the facilities were terrible. He said as far as the clubhouse, which, you know, I mean, the
and
course is
then,
beautiful, and he was right.
the time is to
you look
start
at the-
doing something.
At the clubhouse. it's-
I
Right,
think
man.
agree with that suggestion that we get somebody that can draw this for us and gives us a view
About
of
10
what
years
the
ago, we
size
had,
that we need.
I think I still have them, about 10, 15 different drawings of all the clubhouses that we went around and looked at and then had pictures of.
I went with Dana to Southern Marsh.
Yeah, we talked to the owner.
We had a whole bunch of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
Well, we
matter of fact, he was
should-
willing
we
to
should get
sell
together
us the
to look
toys
at
or
them.
give it to us.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
My other thought too is that if we needed space to have the occasional larger outing there,
At the tent.
maybe it's right, or maybe it's just like a pavilion, so it's like a tent but a real roof, so not putting up.
Well, have you been to
down.
Swansea?
Right.
Have you seen their pavilion?
No,
It's a
I'm not in
nice-
Swansea.
Where's that? Oh, Swansea, yeah.
Yeah, the wooden, it's similar to it's similar to the tent setup, but it's a
It's-
wooden
it's-
pavilion, it's a
yeah,
permanent
well,
structure.
that's all.
Like what's at the library.
But it
it's
was
on
a steel
bigger scale.
building.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Century House was started that way. That was the ballroom used to be an open pavilion. That was all air, then they closed part in, they had a porch to it. And then now it's
Oh, that's
different,
right,
but
yeah. So you get, 50 to 80 people inside and you do the rest in a pavilion. That it doesn't leak when you're
So
eating.
Have steel building.
we need to get a commitment
Nice steel
from
building,
Singer
some nice steel buildings.
They do.
to address some of the issues that you will provide.
Yeah, I'm just writing all these down to myself. I'll put this all together in one email to him saying, these are our questions on this from the first go-round. We want to see these addressed with a second draft first. And then if we kind of review that real quickly after we get it back, and then we can say, okay, now, if we're comfortable at least addressing our concerns, then we can make the commitment to have him come and kind of give his presentation and reasoning for where it's coming
I mean,
from.
I think we're gonna go after something that we can afford and it's gonna be profitable to us.
Exactly.
You don't wanna go into a thing that's gonna take a lot of people to run this thing.
I think this spring, all of us, or some of us, should go revisit some of the interesting clubhouses we think of that might suit us.
There was one, I went to one over there on, excuse me, off, night, what do you call it?
Montauk?
Yeah, that thing, the one on the right there,
Yeah.
I went in there, they had a
That's-
nice tint to it.
There's
Yeah.
nothing big about that, but
No.
they have a facility there.
And that's underneath the couch and
Yeah,
everything else,
yeah, they have
I
it's
liked it,
It's
I
not
thought
a
it
real
was
big
nice.
place.
How about the Resi?
Resi's small. They
Resi.
don't have any, there's no facility
It's
there
too
at all.
tall.
There's
That was
enough
too
room
small.
to put 100 people in there. That's it. And that's pushing it.
But you don't need that, you don't need something like that.
It's
I mean,
small.
yeah, you got a nice little bar over there, but you don't wanna have,
Bar does very
headaches to
well.
have, I mean, bands in there,
No,
or
they-
PJs and the dances.
So
and that stuff.
they have small functions there, maybe.
Yeah,
But,
you
know, on
don't-
occasion, they'll have like, on Fridays, they have a scotch, and they have a guy come in, or every other month, it's somebody different. So it draws a full field at 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
That's when they
Oh,
go
they do the
on.
same thing at the country club. We have a guy that comes in, he sings,
Yeah, but
and
no.
he draws a
yeah.
little bar, and that's all you need. It's a small. Look, you look at this, it's just a little bit bigger than this, and you can fit in the tables.
So I will put this all together in an email to Richard, get him to get us a revised draft, and as soon as I get that back, I'll email it out.
And you had some concerns too with the length of the forecast. Did you want that as well
All right, he
included?
wanted, I know no one has a crystal ball, but maybe what he just put his forecast out a little bit further, at least for golf in general.
I'm happy with up through FY '28 if it's realistic. The fact that 46,000 rounds in FY.
Yeah, by 2030, we should be able to do 56,000.
Yeah, right. I know.
Well, we should put another 9 holes in, then that we can.
But
I was gonna say,
again,
Yeah,
27 holes.
See, I said that a long time ago, you put another 9 in and you leave it open all winter.
yeah,
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah, with does that. With
Then
that.
you close it in the spring, open the 18, and then we go to work on the
Yeah,
9 to get it
nine
ready
on
for the winter time again.
Reservation, no more guests in the winter.
Oh, no kidding.
Private, yep,
in the
No
winter,
more.
yeah.
yep.
They'll open it back up when it drops off again.
No, they just put $100 onto it. They only made like $24,000, so
Wow.
it wasn't worth it.
Never.
So they added an extra $100 everyone's,
Yeah.
and that covers it.
Yeah.
And no one complained. Well, there was a few, but not major.
you always have the loud mouth.
Well, yeah, you're right. Yes, unfortunately.
So we got the maintenance update from Steve next.
Good bit of what I was gonna cover was in the status report there.
Yep.
Just going through, I mean, for the time of year, and the conditions, and the wet weather, I think overall the course is in good condition, especially through the green. I am still concerned somewhat with the saturated soils, it just won't dry out. And the problem is that every 2 or 3 days it rains. Now, it looks like within the next week to week and a half, we're coming into some drier weather and less frequent and less of a volume of rain. So hopefully that'll help us to dry down a little bit. We did complete a needle tine aeration where we pulled the small cores. Again, is about half or so the diameter, maybe a little bit smaller than that of a pencil. After cleanup, cutting and rolling, they were gone in about a day and a half. Didn't really impact playability at all, and we were able to, working within play, we were able to get done in 2.5 days. So that worked out well. This past Tuesday, we did blow out the irrigation system, and the pump station was winterized. And the one thing, it's becoming increasingly evident that in order to fill the system without aggravating a whole lot of people and to enable blowing out the system without aggravating the same number of people, Kevin and I talked about it the other day when we finished. We need to seriously consider being closed on filling days and blowing out days. Especially if we have any particular issue this year. And this year and last year, knock on wood, we didn't have any issues. We were able to move right along in both. This year, it happened to be a good day. I mean, we decided to do that day 3 weeks ago, and it happened to be warm in the afternoon, and I couldn't get the second. I mean, it took us twice as long as normal to get the second and third holes done because we couldn't move. I mean, you have somebody on the green, somebody in the fairway, somebody on the tee. There's nowhere to turn on the head. And when you
How
put
long
them,
does it take to do it?
how long does it take to do it?
To
5 or 6 hours if everything goes
So what
well.
happens if we do it in the morning and open in the afternoon?
Well, let's put the last 2 times that we did it, we finished around 3:30. The one suggestion that we had is if you postpone opening somewhat, if we usually, in order to do the blowout properly as well as the filling, you have to start at the pump station. You can't, well, there's no place else to hook up the compressor besides there. And there's no place else to fill the system because obviously that's where the water comes from. So if we normally do holes 12 through 16 first. So if we do 12 through 16, when we come around the corner, if we jump to 10 and 11, like this year we started 12 through 16 at 7 o'clock and we made the turn to 1 and 18 at 9:30. So if we send play off the back, say at, 10 or 11 o'clock on that day, then, you know, barring any problems, then we should be able to stay ahead, although the first or second group may catch us on the 8th or 9th holes. It just all depends.
Not bad.
You know, but it's, like I said, it's beats,
So
I
why-
mean,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
why don't you and Dana put together a plan to accommodate?
well, I mean, it's just as simple as, you know,
Take
once
some
we-
aeration, when you give me
once
the
the
aeration
weather-
dates, say this is the blow-in date, this is the blowout date, and we'll start at 10 on the back on those days.
Yeah, well, those dates will, you know, they're usually weather dependent. The startup is more controlled by us than anything. The blowout, you know, we try to work because we get the compressor from Secana Turf. They're local. It's worked really well. What happens? They'll do the country club one day, and then he'll bring it over and drop it off to us the next day. So I kind of coordinate with Neil when he's going to do it, and I do the day after. So as soon as I hear from him, then we schedule the blowout.
So would you have the, like, say, 2 weeks before that scheduled?
Oh yeah, I would
What
know.
about posting it at the
Yeah,
office?
I would
It will
know.
be closed
Yeah.
till 12 o'clock on Tuesday of October or December.
Whatever. Yeah. No, I'll know at least 2 weeks. I usually try to schedule the month ahead. But
Then if you do that,
normally
and that's it, and we post it in,
Yeah.
like it or not, that's what we're gonna do.
There you go.
There's no alternative.
No problem.
Better than closing for the whole day.
Absolutely.
Just wanted to bring people up to date. Equipment-wise, we have a tentative delivery date for the 2 Greens triplexes that were ordered in August of 2022. The tentative delivery date is April of 2024, although that's not cast in stone, and the final pricing will be available approximately 60 days prior to delivery. We did our last meeting, and a previous meeting had discussed the Ventrac, which is a rough mower with attachments. We've had scheduled in, or discussed replacing a rough mower. That's what this would be doing. I bring that up because I'd like to see where, you know, we stand on that. We have one old 4500 that's going to need some significant work this winter, and I'm putting that off to the end of the winter. Unless if we were to make a decision on something like this, I wouldn't be doing it just because it's going to be expensive. The lift arms have worn out, and they're, when I say worn out, from going up and down and up and down and up and down, they have to be replaced. The pins that hold them in, and the bearings and seals and what have you. So you're probably going to be dropping $4 or $5 grand into that one machine. So I just want to make sure before I do that, which direction we would be going.
We're gonna drop how much? Between 4 and
I'd say
5,000?
4 and 5. I don't know right off the top of my head. Norm and I were looking at it today, and we, like I said, the lift arms, you know, from going up and down and over top of the ground and over tree roots and everything else, the metal on metal wears, and the pins wear, and you know the holes get oblong instead of round, and then it throws off your height of cut, and the machine's lift arms don't come up the proper distance and so on. So I'll have a better idea of that once we start pricing things out and getting price quotes. I mean, that's my base estimate, somewhere in the neighborhood of the 4 to 5, maybe a little bit more.
We can discuss that when you have all that information, then we can make
Yeah.
a decision with.
We have 3 rough mowers.
Right now, you have 3. You have the 2 4500s and a 35. 3500 has a cutting width of approximately 5.5 feet.
Is that the one you're referring to?
No, the one I'm referring to is we have an older 4500.
Okay, right.
That's the one I'm referring to. I like to keep the 3500 because it's a smaller unit. It can get into some of the tighter spots. The nice thing about the Ventrac is it's an 8-wheeled machine. I can climb any slope on this golf course with that machine and cut it without a problem. I climbed right up the slope on the back tee on the 7th. Yeah.
It's pretty
So it's,
useful.
but it has the utility too of having, to be able to put on a significant number of different attachments, initially, but also into the future if you were to need that. It's just trying to get discussion on it, so it's in the key loop or whatever, because we don't want to get behind on something like that and get to the point where we have a broken down machine that can't be used. We do have other items for consideration as far as equipment goes, all of which we've touched on in the past. Our aerators are basically obsolete. We have one machine to aerate fairways and par 3 fairways and tees and greens, and it's not even as wide as this table, and it's vintage 2006. And
Gee, that's young.
Speaking of the National Golf, well, it's young in terms of 17 years, but it's not young in terms of, if you look at the back of the machine, the number of rotations and pounding, especially here on our nice rocky soils, it's the piston. We've already replaced 2 of the drive arms in the inside back of the machine, but it's not as efficient. It doesn't pull as good a core as the newer technology and equipment. And these are all things that, aeration is one of the more important aspects of what we do, and to be in a circumstance where obviously we have a lot of rounds, we don't have much time to get these particular tasks done. So having newer equipment which is wider, which does it quicker, will enable us to be more efficient, but also, we have an aeration day and that aerator breaks the spindle or breaks down, we're done, and that puts aeration somewhere off into the future to where we can get to it again. So these are older machines that I'm bringing up just so we keep them, keep focused on the fact that they're probably going to need to be replaced, or they definitely need to be replaced when we do it. Is something we should consider at least within the next 12 to 18 months. And there's we have some greens where it would help us if we could use a walk behind greens mower, just because sometimes during the course of the year the triplex on these smaller greens just starts to wear. For example, the 7th green and the 11th green, there are significantly limited places to turn a triplex. And the 3rd green, so you end up turning a lot of times in the same spot, just because you can't. The 3rd green, you can't go off the back, you can't go off the left side to turn. Same thing with 11, you can't go off the back, can't go off the right or the left because you end up in a bunker, where it would be easier to cut those smaller greens with a walking machine, be less wear, especially because most of the turning now occurs on the collars. And you can go out and you can see those particular greens are greens that have weaker collars. Same thing with the 9th green, although the 9th green does provide you a little bit more room on the back before it drops off. And that machine could be a used machine, doesn't have to be a brand new machine. The other thing that concerns me is our chipper is starting to wear, and our supplier is having problems getting us parts for that chipper. I'm not quite sure how old that is because we bought that from Valley Crest, and that was before it came to us. It was down south somewhere. It's a small 6-inch chipper, but it gets a lot of work in the winter. And so far, knock on wood, it's been pretty good. But we've been working on it now to get ready for this season, and we needed some parts, and they had some issues getting those parts for us. And the last thing I had under equipment that I wanted to make sure of, just for my information, is the process we're entering into to replace the golf carts, when that's going to take place and how many, so I know what to do this winter with our existing fleet, whether I'm going to service all of them or whether, as far as, or I'm not going to service them. I just wasn't sure, and I want to make sure that I know exactly which ones carts are going, so when they come, they can't say, oh, well, we're not taking that one. No, you're gonna take the ones that we don't want, that we want you to take, you're not gonna take the ones that you wanna take, so.
I'll get a target date, but I did have a discussion with Keith. He said that they were gonna deliver them this winter.
Yeah, that's what I'm, yeah,
So
something
I will
for the
get
winter.
40 of them?
Yep, he's gonna deliver all of them this winter.
So how many others, what,
42, I think.
there's 42 total, right?
Which
So,
will re-
so obviously we're giving
replace
back
all of
42.
2017.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just have the 21s.
Yes,
in
and then
current
the new ones that we got.
20.
So we're getting 42, and obviously then we're turning in 42.
Yep.
And obviously that would be the oldest.
I'll find out a closer target date.
Yeah, so I just didn't know, you
But
know,
he did
because.
say they're coming this winter, not in the spring. They'll deliver them, as soon as they come in, they're gonna have them drop shipped here. So we'll have them when we open. I think probably what happens with the influx of orders and supplies and everything kind of going back to normal, they're gonna need the space to move all the carts, if everybody's trying to replenish their cart supplies, so they're not gonna be able to, you know, order them, hold them and store them and give them to us. So they'll just, when they get them, they're just gonna have them drop shipped right to our property.
So it sounded like you got no work, Steve.
Yeah, for 42 of them anyways.
Yeah,
Should be brand spanking new, and then we'll work on getting some labels and decals and,
well, that's the
Get
thing,
all
we
that
have
up
to,
to
that's
speed.
why I wanted to know, because then we have some carts that the numbers have worn off of. So if I'm gonna trade in 42 carts, I wanna get 42 new ones with similar numbers, so
Mhm.
they fit into our
right.
numerical sequence for the carts. I mean, you can always go by serial number, but I mean, it's a lot easier to see the
It
little
is.
number on the cart than to crawl underneath the cart and look upside down at the serial number.
Well,
so
true
you
too,
can-
with, when,
Well, I would
Starters and
suggest
ranges
that
wanna
now you
identify
put them
cards.
aside, so they don't take all the ones that you think you should, before you close,
right.
put them aside somewheres.
Well, we're gonna start, as things slow down, we're going to start going through them and identifying the ones.
Right.
I mean, obviously, there's some that are pretty obvious that are gonna be going, and then there's other ones that, you know, you wanna make a decision between which one's better or not. And then, of course, we'll
There
make
isn't
some,
much to decide.
excuse me?
It's all of the
The
2017.
old, yeah, all the old ones. You know what's funny is, in the 21 years we've been here, 22 years, this is the first time that I'm looking at tires that are worn out on golf carts. They are like flat, bald.
Really?
Yes. And I mean, you figure a lot of the round is done on grass, part of it is done on asphalt. But to wear out a golf tire, I mean, you're doing some,
But
pushing some rounds.
again, we shouldn't have anything but 2021s,
Mm-hmm.
which they can't touch, because we're still paying on
Yep.
them. And the newer ones.
And the ones we got now, where they have the USB hubs on it.
Which, by the way, we got double bills on those.
For the new carts?
Yeah. I think Nick mentioned it to you, that you need to,
I'll have to check with him on that as well.
somehow they're issuing of purchase numbers and changing them when we don't pay on time.
Right. They changed the invoice number.
We
Because
don't
the
pay.
original invoice goes in, the invoice number is logged in
Right.
Munis. But if they send a duplicate invoice with a new invoice number, Munis doesn't recognize that as being a new invoice.
Right.
I mean, as the same invoice, sees it as a new invoice and it
Because
processes it.
somebody's asked me to, there's a bill for me to sign, and I'm like, I swear I'd sign this damn bill, but I signed it anyway, with a gun to my head.
At our last meeting, I was asked to come up with some suggestions for bunker renovation. And I listed some there. I believe there's 6 bunkers in total. That bunker on the third hole, oops, sorry, I forgot about it. Bunker on the third hole, the right side bunker on the 4th green, the right side bunker, the 6th green, the 2 green side bunkers on the 10th hole, and the bunker on the left-hand side of the 14th green. Now, the estimate for reconstruction of those, which would include material, labors, bunker liner, sand, what have you, sod, you're looking between $15,000 and $20,000 per bunker. I did make some suggestions for renovation of tees. And the primary reason for most of these tees is they're simply too small. The second white tee and green gold tees, we've spoken in the past about an additional tee on the fifth hole to the left-hand side of the cart path up there on the hill. Because, I mean, if you look at that tee, you look at the blue tee on the third hole, or the fifth hole, then you look at the little white tee in the middle. I mean, it's barely bigger than the forward tee. Same thing on the seventh hole with a white tee. It takes a pounding. It just can't. Just not enough room there to support the amount of play that we get on it. We've been trying to bounce the tees back towards the blue tee, but then that makes it a little bit longer, and people are having difficulty hitting to landing areas and finding balls and whatnot. And we have the white tee on 15. I didn't know if that was still a question or not, so I just added it in there. And then the 17th, the blue, white, and the green gold tees on that particular hole. Again, the cost estimate is based on materials, labor, and what have you, and it's going to depend on the size and design of the tee. Whether you make them separate tees, whether you combine some tees and make it one large teeing area, and depending on how you design, you can use existing irrigation or you might have to add to it. And to that end, in regards to design, you have an attached proposal that gives you expenses related to the renovation of tees and bunkers. Now, this goes through sections or phases. This is not to say that you have to do everything, or the costs all have to be burdened, but if you look on the 5th page, it gives you a breakdown of fees for conceptual review, preliminary design, permitting. The question, well, that is up in the air because it wasn't necessarily known if it was needed. And then to develop construction documents and so on. So what it does is it breaks down all the aspects of the work related to renovation of tee and bunkers from the standpoint of architectural services, and then it goes into explanation about what would be done. So that's there for folks to review. I believe that was another of the requests from the last meeting. And then the third was isolation valves. My recommendation for isolation valves, there's a 3-inch valve on the third hole. There's a 7-inch valve. It's actually, there's on the 7th, between the 7th and the 8th hole, there is no isolation. As a matter of fact, the only isolation for 7, 8, and 9 is at the top of the hill in front of the 10th tee, and when you shut that valve, it shuts off all 3 holes. So if you were to have a break on the 8th hole, you'd have to shut off the 8th and the 9th and the 7th holes to fix it. By putting in the additional isolation valve between 7 and 8, you could shut 8 off, and you wouldn't have to worry about shutting off the other holes. And then the other isolation valve, not quite sure about where the location of this would be. According to the as-built, there is a 6-inch pipe that cuts through the woods between the 7th tee and the 9th hole. I'm going to do a little exploration this winter and see if I can find that, because it's supposed to be creating a loop from 7, 8, and 9 through the woods, and that there's an opening there that we use sometimes to take equipment through. If that's the case and that's where it is, then I dig it up and make sure it's 6-inch, and then I would recommend putting one there. The combined cost of all 3 of those is in the neighborhood of $17,300, depending on when you purchase these bloody things to have them installed, because the prices keep on fluctuating on the steel for construction of the valves.
Steve, how many have we done?
How many have you done? You've done 1, 2, 3, 4. So far, we've done 5. The first year we did 3, and we did 1 on the 7th hole. The one that comes right off the back of the 13th green, which is the big one, which is the main one. We replaced one in the middle of the 4th fairway. We replaced one by the 2nd tee, and we installed a new one in front of the 5th tee that would isolate the 5th hole from the 4th hole. The 5th hole is a dead end. There is no connection between the 5th hole and the 6th hole. The 6th hole comes off the main pipe that runs down the left side of the 1st hole, right by the, you can see the valve box right by the 1st tee. And there's a valve that operates, that solely, it isolates the 6th hole and the driving range fairway in the clubhouse. So we've put, I believe it's 5 so far. And as far, just had a couple notes. We, our staffing, I was looking forward to having a decent-sized staff this winter, so I get a lot of things done. Unfortunately, we're going to be losing a full-time staff member at the end of November. He's moving on to a first assistant's position in another facility. And I will be losing one part-time person, 35 hours per week. In mid-January, he's moving out of state. So that takes our number down 2 notches. Doesn't mean we won't be getting anything done, just means that we won't be able to get quite as much as I had hoped done. I'm going to be looking to replace these folks, as well as to add others to advertising, which we're going to start in February. Hoping to bring people on in March or at their earliest convenience, or whenever we can get them approved once they're found. And I know budgeting is coming up, and we're going, I mean, again, it's going to be difficult at best to fill some of those positions within the limits of the pay scale that we have currently in place. And I don't think, now's the time to go into significant discussion about that, but I just wanted to make that point. And last but not least, we're in the wonderful time of year for frost delays. We've already had 2, which I would...
Not many.
Not many. I would have expected more at the end of October. But the 2 that we did have were rather hard frost, and, we had delays in starting times on the order of starting at 11:30 and 10:30 for those 2 particular instances. So this week, the weekend forecast and is calling for lows in the 30s overnight, Saturday or Friday into Saturday, and then Sunday we're talking mid-20s to high 20s. So I can rest assured that you're going to get into the meat of frost season this weekend and next week. Next week, the average nighttime temperatures are in the upper 20s to mid-30s. So without a wind and clear skies, no clouds, you'll definitely have frost in those circumstances. And I'm wondering whether or not it would be better to, I can't remember whether we did this last year or not, but back up our starting times in November from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
I'd have to agree with that.
Sure.
Reason being, if you have a frost, people just hang out.
They just hang out and
Yeah, and they do nothing. Right?
Yeah.
So I think a 9 o'clock is not a big deal. It's a more of a favorable deal for everybody involved.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. You have to motion that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll make the motion that we'll move it to 9 o'clock,
In November.
November.
And I'll
Weekends
sec-
included?
I'll second. Yeah, might as well.
Well, the frost delay doesn't recognize whether you're a weekday or a weekend.
Good. Yeah.
Mother Nature doesn't care.
Clarifying, just getting the
Although
facts
it-
out there, that's all.
Yeah, I think probably.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think just following up on, Steve's T's and fungus that he's identified, there's a lot there. We do have, some funding that we just got approved at town meeting this past week, but I think maybe between now and the next meeting, we start thinking about how much we want to tackle, or feel we could realistically tackle over this next year, so we can start getting the stuff lined up to do.
Well,
what we
that's the
want.
thing, in order to get these things done, I mean, if you want to, for instance, right now, if you want to do bunker work in 2024, you'd be very lucky to get anybody to do it in the spring. You're probably looking to the fall of the year, because their schedules are filled, and now it's even more difficult because a lot of places which didn't have money in the past and put things off have been earning money. And I talk to the guys that I usually get price quotes from, and they're 6, 7, 8 months out minimum.
Right,
So-
that's why I'm saying we should think now about what we would really want to do, so we can get it out there.
Yeah,
get it all
exactly,
lined
yeah.
up, so we're not in this predicament a year from now and they haven't been done. Okay, then we just have Dana's operations update.
Real quick, before I get into it, I mentioned it last meeting, but the plaque just came in with the winner this year, South Coast Best. We got voted, and again, this was after our 2018, 2019, and 2020 three-peat. 2023 came back home to Acushnet, so that's gonna go up in the pro shop. And the cameraman wants to get a picture of that.
Good job.
It is. Then to move into, real briefly, pro shop. I've basically been pre-booking for next spring, balls, gloves, and the impulse sales stuff. We went through basically roughly half our shoes and more than half of our hats, so I'm gonna check the budget, see what I have left, and if there's monies left, I'm gonna replenish those moving into the spring. Outside of that, everything looks relatively well stocked. And then into the refrigeration issue, has been on work in progress. We have eliminated that finally. Isaac and I ripped out the old refrigerators, and Steve had removed them from the front sidewalk, put them in storage, and they were picked up this week. I have the new refrigerators delivered, installed, and replaced. So that project is completed, and now we have refrigeration moving forward, and we can put whatever we want in them by any vendor we decide to.
What's up with the refrigerated trailer?
I don't have the status on that as of yet, or whether we're gonna have that next season or not, but it was on, it is a temporary basis. It can be called back at any time. It was basically outsourced due to COVID, wasn't needed, but
Right.
as we come out of COVID, they may call it back in, and then we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. But at least, if that does take place, we now have working refrigerators that I can kind of work through the operation with to get through it. But that refrigerator, by
That
far,
refrigerator holds a lot
it is,
of, and it's a
it saves the
plus,
operation.
plus.
Saves the operation.
Oh, yeah, that's, you lose that and you go back to
Yep.
stacking things 10 feet high in one
Yeah, in the
post.
hallway, and
Yeah, I don't know.
it's ideal because now if you run out of product, you don't go get warm product from the hallway. You go down to the truck, pull out cold Gatorades, cold sodas, you put them in the fridge. And as far as our fridge units, with the volume that we have, we're filling those at least once a day. You have to fill those fridges, so you put through 250 customers, they rip it through beers and sodas and Gatorades and waters. They don't want to reach in there and grab a warm beverage. You know what I mean?
It's not only
Especially when
that,
it's
it's
90
the-
degrees outside. So,
You got the protein in there, you know what I mean? To stack it where you used to,
yeah,
I mean,
it's not good for the
something
building,
that you
never
don't
mind.
wanna lose.
It's not good for the
No.
building, never mind
It's
the,
something you don't wanna lose, but it's something that if you lose it, I think it needs to be replaced.
Absolutely. I would definitely recommend if for some reason that gets called back, we would be outsourcing or researching.
Do they
to get one
sell
of those.
used ones? I'm sure somebody must sell those things. We should look
They
at
might sell them
buying
refurbished, or you could lease them probably if you didn't want to own them. But I can get
Yeah.
prices if we needed to. I think I gave Ed a number between around 30-ish if you were to
Sometimes
buy
there's-
one new.
Manual, sometimes there's companies, if you use their product, enough of it, they'll,
Right.
like, years ago, I mean,
The-
White's Farm used to have small units that used to if you use enough of their product, they
Right.
would leave.
Well, that's the situation, the relationship we had with Coca-Cola and Pepsi, and then, but then they weren't upholding their end of the deal to being on the property selling their products. So when the fridge broke down, they wouldn't fix it, or they say they would fix it, then they wouldn't fix it, and then when it was broken and they knew it was broken, then they wouldn't come out and get it because it was too much work to come out and get it. The guy that picked it up nearly hugged and kissed me because it was outside the building and on the sidewalk already, and they didn't have to do what me and Isaac did to get it out of there. He was like, thank God. And those things, I don't know if you know, but they are not light at all. And I don't have the equipment that they have. We muscled it out. And thank God Steve came down the next morning. I texted him, said, hey, if you could get that, it's an eyesore, just scoot it out of the way for the day, and I'll call for him to pick it up. He came down with his equipment, put it aside, and no one even knew the difference. So, and it's, that type of thing is a timing thing, it's a time of season thing, and fortunately, the inventory was lighter in the shop, so you have to take down all the shelving, you have to move your ice machine, move your ovens. It's a chore. So anyways, it's done with, and we're ready to move forward.
No, good.
I think we need a plan on that trail.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Either find out
What's the status of it,
what the
Dana?
status is,
Yeah.
whether we can buy it from them or
Yeah, I doubt we'll be able to buy it from them. If anything, they'll probably take it back, and we'll have to buy one. But they're not going to give that up.
There are ways, there are people,
if they haven't used it for 3 days, 3 years,
yeah.
Yeah,
there must be some trade-in value we could buy it.
I would think
Or
if
lease
if
it.
we I don't think it would be available. Someone else, it would go somewhere else that they could better utilize it. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, we need to come up with a plan, to your point, John.
Yeah, you're right. There's gotta be something there. I mean, you don't wanna go backwards with this
No.
and go back into,
Nope.
you know, like I said, stacking your refrigerators with protein on protein on protein and something on top of that.
Mhm.
You know, that doesn't cut it.
Nope.
You know, I mean, we got away with it for that short period of time. But now that you have this luxury
It
piece,
is a luxury
it's
piece.
a lot easier.
So we gotta figure out how to hold on to it. Or
It's a
Well, yeah.
shame that that's a luxury item,
be
but it
prepared
is.
to buy one.
We have to, like, we would have to do that, yeah. I would think.
Estimated,
You would definitely have to buy one, hands down.
yeah, and it's a timing issue. Do you have, is that 6 months to order?
I don't know. That's another
Maybe you
thing.
could find out.
I checked some prices online just to get an idea of what they cost. I mean, it's a worthwhile investment. to be honest
What
with
is
you.
the
If you
price
don't
that
have
you
it-
check? What's the cost?
It was like $30,000. I didn't have the exact size. I haven't measured the one that we were using, but I took a price of one of the smaller units that they had
See if
online.
there's used ones or something. We gotta be in a position, you don't wanna get shut off.
No, I'll follow up
No,
with the
you-
vendor, see what the plans are for it.
You
If we
can't.
if we need.
Who owns that?
It's a
Budweiser, right?
Budweiser.
Budweiser owns that?
Yeah. So at some point that may go back to wherever Budweiser wants it.
Who's the salesman that you have for
Maybe-
Budweiser?
Maybe they forgot it's still here.
That's a possibility.
So you
So that's
don't-
why I'm saying if
yeah,
we
right.
put in an offer for it, they're gonna go like, that's what that piece of equipment is.
Yeah,
No,
right.
get that thing back over here.
Yeah,
Turn
you're
that
right.
TV.
Yeah. And we'll be back with freaking coolers on wheels that you bring to the beach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who service you on Budweiser?
Darren is his name.
you don't-
Darren, D-E-R-I-N.
What company, what is it?
Budweiser. And Anheuser-Busch.
And Anheuser-Busch.
Quality, sorry, quality
Quality
beverage.
beverage.
So where is, what is they located?
Trucks.
I think they might, I think, are they out of Taunton? I think they're out of
But you
Taunton.
wanna get something that is gonna be
I'll find out which ones we have.
comfortable to the building.
And,
Yeah, we just wanna buy this for $30,000 and then put it on it.
So it's colonial, right?
You know what I mean? Like if you go to
Quality.
Mike's, they-
Quality beverage.
Quality.
Well, a lot of places. Cafe Luna.
Right out the back.
Yeah, right? Same thing, right?
So then,
Sure.
I was made aware by, Club Car that, with our maintenance contract, that we're allowed 14, routine visits, and they come and do routine maintenance on your carts, 14 times in a season, and we hit our limit, and I was unfamiliar that these visits were taking place. But we've hit the 14 number. You have unlimited service calls as you need them on that contract. But I was talking with Steve, and I told him, I said, look, for the routine visits, either Kevin, himself, or myself, or Isaac should call and organize, or call for those service calls, and don't just have the guy show up on like some Tuesday morning. He comes in, there's no cards, he goes, oh, there's one,
Well,
check it off my
the
list.
routine visits, that's what they do. They show up every, 2 Fridays a month, whether you call them or not. And if there's nothing for them to do, well, then they, they'll look
Fiddle
at it.
around with something.
They'll fiddle around with something for a few minutes, then they're gone. So
Right.
there's no
So-
sense in having them, if we don't have any issues,
Right,
there's no sense in
we're gonna
them
better
just show up.
utilize those visits next year. I was unfamiliar with
So
when
we
it was
pay-
popping in and out.
Demand call,
We get unlimited demand calls, yeah. So and
We have to
they
pay
have
for
been
the other-
great on that. They come,
Yeah, service call, they've been fine.
service calls are right on it, and we're in business the next day, the cots are fixed, so I have no complaints. I wasn't aware that we exhausted our resource of 14 visits, so I was just talking with Steve saying, we'll reel that in and get better usage out of that, and that may even afford us to make less service calls, so. Just food for thought. The ball machine,
Oh, boy.
we had discussed possibly getting a new ball machine, so I got a quote for an estimate from Whittick. They have roughly two different models that the vendor was talking to me about. The credit card machine that you go down and swipe a credit card, that one is twice as expensive as the token machine that we currently use. And you'd be losing roughly 2% on those purchases. And the fact that we only order $100 worth of tokens a year, it would take us 7, 8 years to break even on ordering the more expensive one. So if we just got a replacement for our ball machine using the same machine, they can program it and retrofit it so that it uses the same tokens that we currently have. If we were interested in ordering a ball machine, the price is listed there at $6,962. I don't know if you guys are familiar with our machine.
Yeah,
I think
I know.
Al had welded the rust. He put some galvanized steel on the outside of it to
Yeah.
patch it. Looks great,
Yeah.
very stylish.
Not only that, it strips the dimples right off the balls. So you
But-
end up with
Blind ball.
yeah, like a ping pong ball. Yeah.
But to be honest, our machine has been used so much. The guide on the key guide, when you put in the token, is worn out. The tokens get jammed all the time, and people start trying to force them
Whack
in,
it.
and then you got to go down with pliers once a weekend
Yeah,
to
open it
pull
up,
the
take
tokens
it
out.
out.
So, as we're moving forward on equipment and needs, we may want to review that and buy in on it.
I'll make a motion, we purchase a new machine.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. So that's the price, $69.62. They take the old one?
Well, we can, or I don't know. Steve likes to collect stuff. Maybe he wants to put it in the back and hold
Oh,
on
no,
to it.
Steve don't like to collect stuff. Steve just doesn't have any room to
Do they
put
give
stuff.
you anything for that, Dana?
I can ask him. I doubt it. That thing's older than me.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I haven't seen a different ball machine here
Since you've
since
been
I've
here.
been here, so.
Yeah.
That's, ball washing machine,
No.
yes, but ball dispensing machine, no.
But and then the tent takedown is scheduled between the 19th and 26th. Everything underneath it has been taken out and put away in storage, and I'm probably gonna try and run the grill. Possibly 2 weeks, definitely this weekend. Not sure about the next weekend. If it gets down to 45 degrees, nobody's hanging out eating hamburgers outside, so they can buy their beverages in the shop, and I have the steamer going. They can get stuff in the shop if they want it.
Speaking of the grill, I think we should
get a
probably
price on that,
look
too.
at replacing that drill because it's,
It's
we
beef.
can't get, it's beat, but we can't get the parts we need for it.
Get a firm price on chairs too,
Wait until next
for
year.
next meeting, right?
Wait until next year.
Yeah, well.
For the spring, well, we should order them in the off-season, have them
Right.
delivered, throw the other ones in the dumpster, and...
Do we have a catalog? Do we know the price per chair?
It was, what was it, 39 per chair? I think I
Something like
had,
that, yeah, you gave us a copy of that.
So you can have the recommendation for next meeting.
sure.
Speaking of next meeting, that's the next thing on our agenda.
What's that?
So speaking of next meeting, that's the next thing on the agenda.
February 2nd.
Last year I made a recommendation December 24th, so I don't have to go to my relatives. I'd like to make that recommendation again.
Is your wife watching that?
Well, if she is, the doors are locked.
We don't want to do the 21st. 14th maybe,
Of what? December?
December?
Oh.
December
14th,
14th is a Thursday.
Oh, it's a Thursday?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, we always run a
We've been
Thursday.
doing Thursdays, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Right, I'll do that.
December 14th, 4:30 here.
town hall.
Yep.
All right.
Other than that, we just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Bob made it, I think Ed seconded it.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Good night, thank you.